3 days passed after the demonstration in the lecture hall. In that time, everything changed for Tay and Hana. They were no longer the quiet, unknown students from a faraway planet. They were celebrities. Everywhere they walked, other students pointed and whispered. Some came up to ask questions. Others kept their distance, watching with a mix of curiosity and fear. The Academy had set up a special meeting room for interviews. Scientists from across the galaxy were sending questions, and officials from different governments wanted to know more about the humans. Tay and Hana took turns answering, trying to explain their species as honestly as they could. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. Tay was eating lunch in the common area when he heard a strange sound. It was a cry, high and sharp, coming from outside the building. He put down his food and went to investigate. Outside, in the Academy's garden, a group of students had gathered in a circle. They were all looking up at a tall tree. The tree was one of the Academy's oldest plants, brought from a distant world centuries ago. It was very tall, with smooth bark and wide branches. Stuck on one of the highest branches was a small creature. It was a Mavorian, a species that looked like small fuzzy balls with big eyes and tiny legs. Mavorians were not students. They were pets, kept by some of the wealthier students for company. This one had climbed too high and was now too scared to come down. "Someone help!" A student was crying. She was a young Selvian, and the Mavorian was clearly hers. "Please, he's going to fall." The other students looked helpless. The tree was too tall for them to climb. The branch was too thin to hold their weight. Someone had called for a flying drone to help, but it would take time to arrive. The little Mavorian cried again. It was shaking on the branch, its tiny legs losing grip. Tay pushed through the crowd. "Move aside," he said calmly. The students parted quickly when they saw who it was. The human, the Deathworlder. Tay looked up at the tree. On Earth, he had climbed hundreds of trees as a child. This one was tall, but the bark looked rough enough to grip. The branch was thin, but in this gravity, he would barely weigh anything. He jumped. The students gasped as Tay shot upward, much higher than any of them could jump. He grabbed the trunk of the tree and began climbing. His hands and feet found holds easily. His muscles, built for Earth's crushing gravity, moved him up the tree like it was a ladder. In less than a minute, he reached the branch where the Mavorian was trapped. The little creature looked at him with huge, frightened eyes. "Hello there," Tay said softly. "I am going to help you. Do not be scared." Slowly, carefully, he moved along the thin branch. It bent under his weight but held. He reached out and gently picked up the Mavorian, placing it inside his shirt to keep it safe. Then he climbed down. When his feet touched the ground, the crowd erupted in cheers. The Selvian student rushed forward, tears in her big eyes. "Thank you," she cried. "Thank you so much." Tay handed her the Mavorian. The little creature immediately snuggled against its owner, making happy sounds. "It was nothing," Tay said. "I am just glad I could help." But it was not nothing. Word of what happened spread through the Academy within hours. The human had saved a helpless creature. The Deathworlder had been gentle and kind. That evening, Hana found Tay sitting alone in the garden, looking up at the stars. "I heard what you did today," she said. Sitting beside him, "News travels fast here." "It does." She smiled. "People are starting to see us differently." Tay nodded slowly. "That is good. I was worried they would only see us as dangerous, as monsters from a nightmare world." "Some of them still do," Hana admitted. "But more of them are starting to understand. We are not just strong. We are also capable of kindness." They sat in silence for a while, enjoying the quiet of the garden. The Academy's artificial sky showed a beautiful view of the galaxy, with millions of stars shining in the darkness. "Do you miss Earth?" Hannah asked. Sometimes, Tay said. I miss the weight of it. The feeling of gravity holding me down. Here, I always feel like I might drift away. I miss the rain, Hannah said. Real rain, falling hard from the sky. Here, everything is controlled. Perfect. Safe. It does not feel real. Our world is not safe, Tay said. It never was. But it made us who we are. The next morning, Professor Wellness called Tay and Hannah to his office. When they arrived, they found that he was not alone. The academy director was there, along with several other important-looking aliens. Please, sit down, Professor Wellness said. His voice was serious. Tay and Hannah sat. We have been discussing your situation, the director said. And we have come to some important conclusions. What conclusions? Tay asked carefully. First, we owe you an apology, the director said. When Earth first made contact with the galactic community, we did not take your species seriously. We saw you as small, primitive, and unimportant. We were wrong. Very wrong, Professor Wellness added. My lecture about Deathworlds was based on incomplete knowledge. I said that no intelligent species can evolve on a Class 9 world. I was clearly mistaken. We do not need an apology, Hannah said kindly. You did not know. That is precisely the problem, the director replied. We did not know. We made assumptions based on appearance. We looked at humans and saw weakness. We never considered that you might be the strongest species in the known galaxy. Tay and Hannah exchanged glances. Strongest? Tay repeated. We have checked our records, Professor Wellness explained. There is no other known species from a Class 9 world. You are unique. Your strength, your endurance, your speed, your ability to heal from injuries, your resistance to disease, your adaptability to different environments. Humans are exceptional in every measurable way. We are also very fragile in some ways, Hannah pointed out. We can die from simple things, infections, accidents, falls. But you survive things that would kill any other species, the director said. We have read the medical reports from Earth. Humans have survived being shot, stabbed, burned, frozen, poisoned, and crushed. You have survived losing limbs and kept living. You have survived diseases that would wipe out entire populations of other species. Humans are persistent, Tay admitted. We do not give up easily. That persistence, the director said slowly, is why we wanted to speak with you today. He leaned forward, his silver scales catching the light. The galactic community has enemies. There are threats out there that peaceful species cannot handle alone. For centuries, we have struggled against dangers that we are too weak, too slow, or too fragile to face. What are you asking us? Tay said. We are asking if humans would be willing to help. Not as conquerors, not as warriors, but as protectors, as allies, as the strong hand that helps the weak stand up. Tay was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Hannah. That is not a decision we can make alone, he said. We would need to ask all of humanity. We understand, the director said. But we wanted you to know that the offer stands. The galaxy may have underestimated humans at first, but now we see the truth. And the truth is that humans may be exactly what the galaxy needs. Hannah smiled softly. Humans have always protected those who cannot protect themselves, she said. It is part of who we are. I think our people will say yes. And in her heart, she knew she was right. Professor Wellness canceled the rest of his lecture that day. Instead, he asked Tay and Hannah to stay after class. But they were not alone. Word had spread quickly through the academy, and soon the lecture hall was full again. This time, the students had not come to learn about planetary classifications. They had come to see the Deathworld humans. Teachers from other departments arrived, too. Scientists, Researchers, even the Academy director, a very old Selvian with silver scales and wise yellow eyes, came to watch. Tay and Hana stood at the front of the room, feeling like animals in a zoo. But they did not complain. They understood that the galaxy needed to learn about humans. Fear came from not understanding. If they could help others understand, perhaps fear would turn into friendship. Let us start with simple questions, Professor Volna said. He had brought his research equipment and was setting up sensors and scanners. How do humans survive on Earth? What is daily life like? Hana spoke first. Daily life on Earth is normal to us. We wake up, eat, work, and sleep. We have families and friends. We build cities and grow food. But the gravity, a scientist said. How do you even stand up? We do not think about it, Hana explained. For us, Earth's gravity is just gravity. It is all we knew until we came here. Standing up is easy. Walking is easy. Running, jumping, climbing. These are things human children learn before they can speak properly. The audience murmured in disbelief. When I first arrived at this academy, Tay added, I felt very strange. The gravity here is so light. I felt like I might float away. Walking was difficult at first because my legs pushed too hard. I kept jumping by accident. You kept jumping by accident? A Dorvian asked. Yes. When I walked normally, using the strength I use on Earth, I would lift off the ground. I had to learn to walk gently here. Professor Wellness was scanning Tay with his instruments. His 3 eyes kept getting wider as he read the results. Your bone density, he said quietly. It is extraordinary. Your bones are 3 times denser than a Malorian's bones. And your muscle tissue. The fibers are packed so tightly that my scanner almost cannot see between them. Is that unusual? Hana asked innocently. Unusual? The professor laughed, but there was no humor in it. It is unprecedented. With bones and muscles like these, you could survive impacts that would kill any other species. You could fall from great heights and walk away. We do fall sometimes, Tay said. Accidents happen. Most of the time, we are fine. A young Malorian student raised her hand nervously. What about your hearts? Pumping blood in heavy gravity must be very hard. Hana nodded. Human hearts are strong. They beat about 70 times per minute. Every minute. For our entire lives. Some humans live for 80 or 90 years. That is billions of heartbeats, all fighting against gravity to move blood through our bodies. Billions of heartbeats, someone whispered in awe. The Academy director stepped forward. His silver scales caught the light as he moved. I would like to see more demonstrations, he said. His voice was old but powerful. Words are interesting, but seeing is believing. Tay looked at Hana. She nodded. What would you like us to demonstrate? Tay asked. The director thought for a moment. Speed. Can you show us how fast humans can move? Tay looked around the lecture hall. There was not much room to run. But there was another way. Hana, he said, do you remember the training we did back on Earth? The reaction exercises? Hana smiled. I remember. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small ball. It was a simple toy from Earth, the kind children played with. This ball is very bouncy, she explained. On Earth, we use it to practice catching and throwing. I will throw it at Tay as hard as I can. Watch his hands. The audience leaned forward. Hana wound up her arm and threw the ball. On Earth, this would have been a normal throw. Here, in the lighter gravity, the ball moved like a bullet. It shot through the air faster than most eyes could follow. Tay's hand moved. It was a blur, faster than anything the alien students had ever seen. One moment the ball was flying toward his face. The next moment it was in his hand. He had caught it effortlessly. The audience gasped. Again, the director said. Do it again. Hana threw the ball again. This time, she aimed for different spots. Left side. Right side. High. Low. Each time, Tay's hand appeared exactly where the ball was going, catching it before it could pass him. "Your reaction speed," Professor Wellness said, checking his instruments again. "It is. I do not have words. You are processing visual information and responding faster than should be possible." "On Earth, we had to be fast," Tay explained. "Our ancestors were prey before they were predators. Things tried to eat us. If we could not react quickly, we died. Only the fast ones survived to have children." "What about endurance?" another scientist asked. "How long can humans keep moving?" This was Hana's area. She had been a long-distance runner on Earth. "Humans are pursuit predators," she said. "That means we do not catch our prey by being faster than them. Most animals are faster than us in short bursts. But we can run for hours without stopping. Days, even. We chase our prey until they are too tired to run anymore." "Days?" someone repeated in horror. "There is a race on Earth called the Ultramarathon," Hana continued. "Humans run for over 100 kilometers without stopping. Some races last for multiple days, where runners sleep only a few hours before continuing." The room was completely silent. "You are describing monsters," the Corvian student said quietly. She was no longer proud or rude. She looked scared. "We are describing humans," Tay said gently. "We are not monsters. We are just adapted. Our planet tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We survived. We got stronger. We got smarter. And eventually, we became the dominant species on Earth." "How?" the director asked. "How did soft, small creatures like you become dominant over everything else?" Tay thought about this question carefully before answering. "Two things," he said. "Our brains and our hands. We could think of ways to solve problems, and we could build tools to help us. We made weapons to hunt animals bigger than us. We made shelters to survive weather that should have killed us. We made medicine to cure diseases. We worked together, as groups, as tribes, as nations. Alone, a human is just a small animal on a dangerous world. Together, humans conquered our entire planet." Hana stepped closer to the alien audience. "And now we are here," she said softly. "We are not here to conquer anyone. We are not here to frighten you. We want to learn. We want to make friends. We want to explore the stars alongside all of you. Yes, we come from a death world. Yes, we are strong, but we are also kind. We help those who need help. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is also part of being human." The academy director was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to make a sound. It was a clicking noise, which was how Selvians clapped. One by one, other students and teachers joined in. Different species made different sounds of approval. Soon, the entire lecture hall was filled with applause. Tay and Hana looked at each other and smiled. Maybe the galaxy was not ready for humans, but humans were ready for the galaxy. They had been preparing for this their whole lives, surviving on a world that wanted to kill them. Compared to Earth, the rest of the universe seemed very friendly indeed. The silence in the lecture hall lasted for a very long time. It felt like the whole room had stopped breathing. Every alien student stared at the human standing in the back row. Professor Wellness stood frozen at his podium, his three eyes blinking rapidly. Finally, a Velkian student broke the silence. "That cannot be right. The data must be wrong." "Check it again," another student said. This one was a Dorvian, a large creature with thick blue skin and small eyes. "Humans are so small. They cannot be from a death world." Professor Wellness tapped his datapad again. His long fingers moved quickly across the screen. He checked the information once, twice, 3 times. Each time, the result was the same. "The data is correct," he said slowly. "Earth is classified as 9.4. It has heavy gravity, extreme temperature changes, a poisonous atmosphere for most species, and dangerous wildlife. Poisonous atmosphere? Someone asked. The air contains high levels of oxygen, the professor explained. Oxygen in such amounts is toxic to many species. It causes burning in the lungs and damage to skin. We breathe it, Hannah said from her seat. We need it to live. More gasps filled the room. Tay was still standing. He looked calm and patient, like he was used to waiting for others to understand. This is impossible, Professor Velness said. He was talking more to himself than to the class. The gravity alone should make higher intelligence impossible. The energy required to maintain your body structure, to pump blood against such force to develop large brains. Our brains are not that large, Tay said simply, but they work well enough. A Corvian student stood up from her seat. Corvians were tall and thin, with pale green skin and long necks. They were known for being proud and sometimes rude. I do not believe this, she said loudly. This human is lying. Or the Earth data is wrong. There is no way such a small, weak-looking species comes from a Class 9 world. Tay did not look angry. He did not even look surprised. He simply turned to face the Corvian student. Why do you think I am weak? He asked. Look at you, the Corvian said. You are short. Your arms are thin. You have no claws, no scales, no natural armor. On my world, you would be prey. Some students laughed nervously. Your world is Class 3, Tay said calmly. Very comfortable. Gentle gravity. Mild weather. Few predators. The Corvian's green face darkened with embarrassment. How do you know that? I studied before coming here. I wanted to understand my classmates. That does not matter, the Corvian snapped. You still look weak. I could lift you with one arm. Tay smiled slightly. It was a small smile, but something about it made the Corvian step back. Would you like to try? Tay asked. The lecture hall buzzed with excitement. Students whispered to each other. This was much more interesting than learning about planetary classifications. Professor Velness raised his hands. Please, let us stay calm. This is a place of learning, not a fighting arena. I am not suggesting a fight, Tay said politely. I am suggesting a simple test. A demonstration. If everyone thinks humans are weak because of how we look, perhaps we should show them the truth. What kind of demonstration? The professor asked carefully. Tay walked down the stairs toward the front of the lecture hall. His steps were easy and smooth. In the Academy's standard gravity, which was set to Class 4 level, he felt lighter than he had ever felt in his life. Walking here was like floating. Running would be like flying. When he reached the bottom, he stood near the professor's podium. The podium was made of ceremonial stone, a gift from the Malorian homeworld. It was carved with ancient symbols and was considered very precious. It was also very, very heavy. This podium, Tay said. How heavy is it? Professor Velness looked at the stone structure. It weighs approximately 400 standard units. It took 4 strong Malorians to carry it into this room. May I touch it? The professor hesitated. I suppose so. But please, be careful. It is a historical artifact. Tay nodded. He placed his hands on the sides of the stone podium. He took a breath. In the seats above, Hannah leaned forward. She knew what was coming. She had seen Tay lift heavy things before, back on Earth. She had seen him carry equipment that machines were supposed to carry. She had seen him work in the shipyard, moving metal beams like they were made of paper. Tay lifted the podium. He did not strain. He did not struggle. He simply lifted it like someone picking up a book from a table. He held the 400-unit stone podium with both hands, then shifted it to one hand, holding it steady at his side. The lecture hall went completely mad. Students screamed. Some jumped out of their seats. One Dorvian fell backward in shock. The Corvian who had called Tay weak stood with her mouth hanging open. Unable to speak, Professor Wellness stumbled backward, his 3 eyes wider than ever before. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" Tay gently placed the podium back on the floor. He was not even breathing hard. "On Earth," he said, "this weight is normal for a person to carry. Our workers lift things like this every day. Our athletes lift much more. But your muscles," the professor stammered. "They look so ordinary." "Looks can be misleading," Tay said. "Our muscles are dense, very dense. They developed over millions of years under heavy gravity. They do not need to be big to be strong." He held up his arm. It looked like a normal arm. Thin, covered in smooth skin, nothing special. Inside this arm are millions of muscle fibers packed tightly together. Each fiber is stronger than the fibers in most other species. When they all work together, he picked up the podium again with one hand, just to make his point. The Corvian student slowly sat back down. Her face was very pale now. "I apologize," she said quietly. "I should not have called you weak." Tay set the podium down and nodded at her. "No apology needed. You did not know. Nobody knows about humans yet. We are new to the galaxy." Hannah stood up from her seat in the back and started walking down to join Tay. As she walked, students moved out of her way quickly. They looked at her with new eyes now. She was not just a small, soft human anymore. She was something else. Something they did not fully understand. "Professor Wellness," Hannah said when she reached the front, "perhaps you should change your lecture." The professor looked at her, then at Tay, then at the podium that a human had just lifted with one hand. "Yes," he said slowly. "I think I should. But first, I have questions." "Many questions. We will answer them," Tay said. "But understand that Hannah and I are not special among humans. We are average. We are normal." "Normal," the professor repeated. The words seemed to frighten him. If these two humans were normal, what were the strong ones like? Above them, hundreds of alien students sat in shocked silence, all of them thinking the same question. What exactly had they invited into their peaceful galaxy? The great lecture hall of the Galactic Academy was full of students from many different worlds. Some had blue skin. Some had 4 arms. Some floated in special water tanks because they came from ocean planets. The room was huge, with seats going up like stairs, and at the bottom stood Professor Wellness. Professor Wellness was a Malorian, a species known for their big brains and their love of teaching. He had gray skin, 3 purple eyes, and long thin fingers that moved when he talked. He was old, even by Malorian standards, and he had taught at the academy for over 200 years. Everyone respected him. Everyone listened when he spoke. Today's lesson was about planetary classification. It was a boring topic for most students, but Professor Wellness made everything sound important. "Pay attention," he said, his voice filling the room through the speakers. "What I teach you today might save your life someday." He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed a planet, spinning slowly. The planet was brown and red, with thick clouds and violent storms. "This," Professor Wellness said, "is a Class 9 world. We call them Deathworlds." The students leaned forward. Deathworlds were interesting. Everyone had heard stories about them. "Class 9 worlds have many dangerous features," the professor continued. "Extreme temperatures, poisonous air, dangerous animals. But the worst thing about them is gravity." He changed the hologram. Now it showed numbers and charts. A Class 9 world has gravity that is much stronger than normal. On these planets, everything is heavy. Walking is hard. Breathing is hard. Your heart must work twice as hard just to pump blood through your body. A student in the front row raised one of her 4 hands. She was a Vulcan, with orange fur and big dark eyes. Professor, how strong is the gravity exactly? Good question, Professor Wellness said. He smiled, showing his small teeth. Class 9 gravity is at least 9 times stronger than what we consider normal. 9 times. Can you imagine that? If you weigh 100 units here, you would weigh 900 units on a Class 9 world. The students made sounds of surprise and fear. Now, here is the important lesson, the professor said. He walked slowly across the floor, his long robes dragging behind him. No intelligent species has ever evolved on a Class 9 world. It is impossible. He said the word impossible very slowly, like he wanted everyone to remember it. The gravity is too strong. Bones would break. Muscles would tear. Brains cannot grow large enough for intelligence when the body must spend all its energy just staying alive. This is a scientific fact. No species survives Deathworld gravity long enough to become intelligent. In the back of the lecture hall, in the last row, sat 2 students who looked different from everyone else. They had smooth skin, not blue or gray or orange, but a soft brown color. They had only 2 eyes, 2 arms, and 2 legs. They were small compared to most other species, and they sat very quietly. Their names were Tay and Hana. They were humans, and they were the only humans at the Galactic Academy. Tay was 23 years old. He had short black hair and a calm face. He did not talk much, but when he did, people listened. He was studying engineering because he wanted to build ships that could travel between stars. Hana was 22. She had long black hair that she kept in a simple tie. She was studying medicine because she wanted to help people, no matter what species they were. She had a kind smile and made friends easily. They had arrived at the Academy 6 months ago, when Earth finally made contact with the galactic community. The other species were curious about humans, but did not think much of them. Humans were new. Humans were small. Humans came from a planet that nobody had heard of. Tay listened to the professor's lecture with growing interest. He looked at Hana. She looked back at him. They both knew something that the professor did not know. Professor Wellness, a student called out. Are there any planets close to Class 9? Like Class 8 or Class 7? Yes, there are some Class 7 and Class 8 worlds, the professor answered. A few hardy species have evolved on these planets. They are tough and strong, but they are rare. Class 9, however, is the limit. Beyond that, life simply cannot exist in intelligent form. Tay raised his hand slowly. Professor Wellness looked up at the back of the room. His 3 eyes focused on the human. Yes? The new student. Tay, is it? Yes, Professor, Tay said. His voice was quiet but clear. I have a question. Please, ask. You said no intelligent species can evolve on a Class 9 world. That is correct. But what if one did? The professor laughed softly. Some students laughed too. That is a fun thought experiment, Professor Wellness said. But it is impossible. The science is clear. Deathworld gravity would crush any developing species before it could become intelligent. The energy required just to survive would leave no room for brain development. Tay nodded slowly. I understand what you are saying, but I must ask another question. Go ahead. What is Earth's classification? The room became quiet. Some students looked confused. They did not know what Earth was. The name was still new to most of the galaxy. Professor Wellness tapped his datapad. Earth, let me see. That is your home planet, correct? Yes, Professor. The professor's 3 eyes scanned the screen. For a long moment, he did not speak. His gray skin became a little paler. There must be an error, he said quietly. "What does it say, Professor?" Hannah asked. Professor Velmus looked up at the two humans in the back row. His eyes were wide now, showing confusion and something that looked like fear. "According to this data, Earth is classified as Class 9.4. The lecture hall went completely silent. Every student turned to look at Tay and Hannah. Tay stood up slowly. In the low gravity of the academy, standing should have been difficult for someone from a heavy world. But he stood easily, smoothly, like it was the most natural thing in the universe. "Professor," Tay said calmly, "if no species can survive Deathworld gravity, then why am I standing here?" Nobody said a word. Nobody moved. The professor's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Hannah smiled softly. The lecture about planetary classification had just become much more interesting. The message spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every planet, every station, every ship received the news. The humans were not what anyone had thought. They were Deathworlders. They were survivors of a Class 9.4 nightmare planet. And they were now part of the galactic community. At first, there was fear. Species who had never worried about physical threats suddenly found themselves nervous. If humans were so strong, what would stop them from taking what they wanted? What would stop them from becoming conquerors, like the ancient empires that had once terrorized the stars? But the fear did not last. Stories began to spread alongside the warnings. Stories about the two human students at the Galactic Academy. Stories about a young man who had climbed a tall tree to save a frightened pet. Stories about a young woman who had helped heal an injured Malorian student using techniques from Earth medicine. Stories about kindness, patience, and gentle words. The galaxy learned that humans were strong, yes, but they also learned that humans chose how to use their strength. 6 months after the famous lecture, Earth sent more representatives to the galactic community. Not soldiers, not warriors. Teachers, scientists, doctors, and artists. Humans who wanted to share what they knew and learn from others in return. Tay and Hannah became official ambassadors. They traveled to different worlds, answering questions and showing people that humans were nothing to fear. Everywhere they went, crowds gathered to see them. Children stared with wide eyes. Adults asked careful questions. And slowly, understanding grew. On the water world of Velnus Prime, Tay demonstrated human swimming ability. The fish-like Velnians were amazed that a land creature could move so well in water. On Earth, we learned to swim in our oceans, Tay explained. Our oceans are vast and dangerous. Learning to swim was necessary for survival. Your entire planet seems designed to kill you, a young Velnian said. Tay laughed. It does, but we learn to love it anyway. Earth is our home. It made us who we are. On the forest world of Corvallis, Hannah showed her medical skills by helping treat a local disease that had been spreading through the population. Human medicine was different from galactic medicine, but some of the techniques were surprisingly effective. You cut into the body to fix it? A Corvian doctor asked, horrified. Sometimes, Hannah said. We call it surgery. It sounds violent, but it saves many lives. On Earth, we had to be creative to survive. When our bodies broke, we found ways to fix them. The Corvian doctor watched Hannah work. Her hands were steady and precise. Her movements were confident but gentle. By the end of the day, he was taking notes, eager to learn more. On the metal world of Dorvax, Tay helped repair a damaged space station. The work was hard and dangerous, requiring someone to move heavy equipment in areas where gravity was unstable. No Dorvian was strong enough for the job. No machine was precise enough. Tay spent 3 days working in conditions that would have killed any other species. When he finished, the station was fully operational again. The Dorvian workers gathered to thank him, their blue faces showing genuine gratitude. You did not have to help us, the station commander said. Earth owes us nothing. But you are our neighbors now, Tay replied simply. Neighbors help each other. Word of these acts spread further. Humans were strong, people said, but they used their strength to help others. They protected the weak. They healed the sick. They fixed what was broken. They were not conquerors. They were guardians. 1 year after the famous lecture, the Galactic Council held a special meeting. Representatives from every major species gathered in the Great Hall to discuss an important proposal. The proposal was simple: offer Earth full membership in the Galactic Alliance. With all the rights and responsibilities that came with it, there was debate, of course. Some species were still nervous about humans. Some worried about what would happen if humans ever turned their strength toward war. But more and more voices spoke in favor. I was in Professor Wellness's class that day, the Corvian representative said. She was the same student who had once called Tay weak. Now she stood before the council as a diplomat for her people. I watched a human lift a stone podium with one hand. I was terrified, but I also watched that same human speak to us with patience and kindness. He did not use his strength to threaten us. He used it to teach us. The Selvian representative spoke next. My daughter's pet was saved by a human, he said. A creature from a nightmare world climbed a tree and gently rescued a frightened animal. That is not the action of a monster. That is the action of a friend. The Dorvian representative told the story of the space station repair. The Velnian representative talked about human swimmers. The Malorian representative, Professor Wellness himself, spoke about everything he had learned since that day in his classroom. I have spent my whole life studying the universe, Professor Wellness said. I thought I understood how life worked. I was wrong. Humans have taught me that the impossible is sometimes possible. That strength does not mean cruelty. That survivors can also be saviors. The vote was called. One by one, the representatives cast their decisions. The result was unanimous. Earth was now a full member of the Galactic Alliance. When the news reached Earth, there were celebrations in every city. People laughed and cried and held each other. After centuries of dreaming about the stars, humanity had finally found its place among them. Tay and Hana heard the news while they were on a transport ship, traveling to their next assignment. They watched the announcement on a small screen, surrounded by alien passengers who clapped and cheered. We did it, Hana said quietly. Her eyes were wet with tears. Not just us, Tay replied. All of humanity. Everyone who ever struggled to survive on our planet. Everyone who ever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. An alien child, a small Malorian with bright, curious eyes, tugged on Hana's sleeve. Excuse me, the child said shyly. Are you really from a Deathworld? Hana smiled and knelt down to the child's level. Yes, I am. Were you scared? Growing up on such a dangerous planet? Hana thought about the question. She thought about earthquakes and storms, about predators and diseases, about all the ways Earth had tried to kill her ancestors. Sometimes we were scared, she admitted. But fear taught us to be brave. Danger taught us to be careful. Pain taught us to be kind to each other. Our planet was hard, but it gave us gifts too. What kind of gifts? The gift of never giving up, Hana said. The gift of always trying again. The gift of helping others, because we know how much it means to be helped. The child thought about this. Then it smiled. I am glad you are here, it said. The galaxy needed you. Hana looked up at Tay. He was smiling too, that small, calm smile she knew so well. The galaxy needed us, she repeated softly. And maybe we needed the galaxy too. Outside the ship's windows, 1,000,000 stars shone in the darkness. Each star was a sun. Each sun might have worlds spinning around it. Worlds with people who waiting to meet humans, waiting to see what the Deathworlders could do. Humanity had spent millions of years fighting to survive on a planet that wanted them dead. Now they were free. Free to explore. Free to learn. Free to help others the way they had always helped each other. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and humanity was just getting started.